Hi, I'm Kat Kalashian for Live and Invest Overseas, and today I would like to share 7 of the unique reasons that it makes sense to buy international property. So, real estate is a dependable store of wealth. FDR called it the safest investment in the world. And unlike a lot of investments, it's something physical that you can touch, even live on. And international property ownership is the cornerstone of any real diversification strategy. So, instead of buying into the US housing market, for example, or at least instead of only buying into the US housing market, diversifying into other countries is a safety net against things like volatile markets, economies, and political situations, and it can bring profits and cash flow across currencies. But beyond being just an investment, a piece of property overseas provides a lot of other unique benefits that you might not know about. So here are the top 7 reasons why you should be thinking about investing in property internationally. Number 1, property in other countries can come at a discount for US dollar holders. So this obviously depends on the exchange rate at the time that you make the purchase. But when you're buying property in a foreign currency, the local currency's exchange rate affects the sales price in dollar terms. So a currency advantage means that whatever your capital budget, it'll buy you more when your dollar is strong against the euro, the pound, the peso, or other key currencies. The dollar will go that much farther. So a house costing 100,000 euros, for example, would have cost you $133,000 at an exchange rate of 133 to the euro back in 2013. But at the time of filming, it would only be about 116,000 based on the rate of exchange. Number 2, property overseas can cost much less than US property, period. On top of the savings that might be brought in by the currency savings advantage, overseas property can be many times cheaper than comparable US property. So, a beach property in northern Cyprus or Ceará, Brazil, for example, could cost less than $100,000. In top US beach towns like in California or in Florida, you could easily pay 20 times that. Number 3, international properties can provide income. So, in addition to becoming a second home, renting out can generate cash flow in the meantime. That can be used to offset the carrying costs of your property, things like maintenance or taxes, or to build a nest egg in the local currency if you're planning to move there or if you are living there. So net yields for rental homes tend to be a bit lower in Europe, but in places with tourism appeal, double-digit returns are possible. And in northern Cyprus, for example, a small beach property can cost less than $100,000, and with short-term rental markets back at the pre-pandemic levels, net yields were more than 10%, and that is very realistic even today. So to take advantage of the US dollar's strength in Europe, consider coastal areas of Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, and these would make a lot of sense for short-term vacation rental investments where people are going on holidays to the beach for their school vacations or their summer holidays. And then rental properties can also be found for less than $200,000 in these countries that historically have really strong tourism demand. For example, in bigger cities, like in Lisbon, for example. Plus, the exchange rate could swing back in the future, meaning that you could actually realize US dollar appreciation in the value of the property, even if the underlying price of the property is the same locally. Number 4, overseas property can bring privacy and tax advantages. So owning property in other countries is one of only 2 asset classes that Americans are not required to report to the IRS. As they say themselves, foreign real estate is not a specified foreign financial asset required to be reported on Form 8938. For example, a personal residence or a rental property does not have to be reported. Even if the government wanted to, it would be unable to seize or force the sale of your home in Belize or your penthouse in Colombia, your beach house in Brazil, etc. Lawyers, former spouses, friends, ex-employees, and so on are likewise stonewalled if they ever tried to sue you for whatever reason. Renting out your overseas property can bring tax advantages as well. For example, you can deduct the cost of every trip you take to check on your property on your US tax return. So it's possible to deduct the interest paid on your foreign home mortgage from your taxable income as well. It's also possible to deduct the interest paid on your foreign home mortgage from your taxable income. Number 5, owning property internationally brings diversification and risk reduction. So when you're buying property overseas, you reduce your market risk, exchange rate risk, the risk of seizure by government or other parties, and any other liability risk. U.S. courts can't seize your foreign property, and overseas markets may rally while the U.S. housing market heads towards a slump. So by investing abroad, you're putting an egg in another basket. Before I get into the final 2 advantages, which you're going to want to hear, plus the 4 big downsides of owning property internationally, which of course you should be aware of, I'd like to share an exciting new publication, hot off the presses. We have just released our newest book from Live and Invest Overseas and Lahardin Publishing, The Beginner's Guide to Buying Real Estate Abroad. In it, our international real estate expert and veteran investor, Leif Simon, who's the co-founder of Live and Invest Overseas, shows how you can build a steady passive income by owning real estate and rental properties abroad. This complete guide walks you exactly where and how to invest in income-producing properties in foreign markets. You'll discover the most lucrative markets, how to calculate real cash flow, financing options, how to partner with local managers. You'll also learn from Leif's personal experience. He's bought 64 properties in 23 countries, so his experience is not negligible, including how to navigate bureaucracy, the tax rules, and the deal pitfalls that you may come across in these adventures. Learn more about this book by clicking on the screen and grab a free copy if supplies are still lasting. All right, number 6, owning international real estate can bring residency perks. So buying real estate of a certain value can be a fast track to residency in that country in some places. So several countries in Europe and Latin America offer low hassle residency visas in exchange for property purchase. And overseas residency is another essential component of any diversification strategy. Obtaining the legal rights to live in another country means that you have a place to go if you ever want or need to leave your home country permanently. So your overseas property could be your plan B. For example, if government regulations become too stifling at home, or it could be a place to ride out the next pandemic. Some countries had much less intrusive COVID lockdowns than the United States did, for example. Plus, residency actually can lead to citizenship. It usually does after 5 to 10 years if you're interested in getting a second passport. So for example, one that allows unrestricted access to Europe would be extremely valuable. So that would allow you to spend as much time as you wanted in Europe without needing to leave the Schengen zone every 90 days. And these might not mean a lot to you now, but the further you walk down this diversification path, the more you'll realize what all of these extra benefits can really do for you in the long term. Number 7, and perhaps my favorite, low-cost vacations. A piece of property, of course, is an investment, but ideally it is also a place that you enjoy spending time. It can double as a retirement plan. Today's investment could be tomorrow's retirement residence, earning you rental income until you're ready to make the move yourself. Real estate overseas can also double as a holiday or a second home, an investment that you and your family can enjoy from the day that you make it. You could organize house swaps with other overseas vacation homeowners, and the cost of living in many of the most desirable places around the world is much less than it is in the United States, especially the costs of services and healthcare. So by spending time in your vacation home, you can save money not just on those things, but also avoid things like spending on winter heating or summer AC bills. So there you have it. These are some of the most unique benefits that a lot of people don't realize about owning real estate in other countries. Now to talk about the 4 downsides to investing in property overseas. So the first one is that not many countries have an equivalent to what we have in the United States and what we call the multiple listing service, or MLS. So not having an MLS in other countries means that agents can't show you everything available that fits your parameters because they don't have access to everything that's available. They only have access to their proprietary listings. And if they don't have what you're looking for, they'll show you whatever they do have, regardless of whether it meets your needs. So it can be a little bit of a time waster. Number 2, in most cases, you'll need to be prepared to buy with cash. It can be difficult for non-resident foreign buyers to get mortgages. It is possible in some countries, but it can be more expensive than in the United States. So another caveat to this is that banks may require you to take out a local life insurance policy, naming the lending bank as the primary beneficiary if you die before the mortgage is paid off. Most life insurance companies, on the other hand, will only insure you up to age 70 or 75. So this limitation really restricts the mortgage term. If you're older than 50 when applying for financing, for example, if you're a 65-year-old, you could qualify for a 10-year loan at best. Number 3, Another factor to consider when buying property, really in Europe, is the transaction costs. These can be as low as 1%, but as high as 10%, depending on the country. So you really need to do your due diligence before you make the investment. This is not the case for most of Latin America, where transfer costs are much, much lower, with just a few exceptions. And number 4, if there's a place that you do really want to vacation every year and you buy a home there, then owning the property and renting it out can reduce your vacation expenses. On the other hand, you may feel obligated to use it for your vacations, which might feel a little bit constricting or restricting. Plus, if you use it for more than the thresholds for expense deductions, the financial benefits are reduced. On the flip side, if you do not use it yourself and you only rent it out instead, it becomes pure investment, which can also trigger tax obligations. So no matter what, there is going to be some filing to do with the IRS, whether or not you owe them anything. And that's something that you've got to look in more deeply once you get into the specific situation of the property and the country. There you have it, 7 reasons to buy property overseas and 4 that you might want to reconsider it on. For more insights like this, and if this is anything that's of interest to you, buying real estate overseas, I highly recommend checking out the Beginner's Guide to Buying Real Estate Abroad. If supplies are lasting, you may be able to claim a free copy. So click on that link and see if you still qualify. And for more insights like this about living and investing overseas, be sure to like and subscribe. Happy trails.